Good evening. This is the Dominance Academy. And I am Mr. Justin. Listening to a mix that I had made between two tracks and cobbled together drum lines from various samples. So, it's Friday, and so I imagine this stream is going to be a little bit quieter. Numbers have been growing, so I'm very happy about that. But tonight, it's Friday. It's not too cold in the States here, so I imagine that people are going to be out, and I'm glad for that instead of being in here watching me. But for those that you indulge, welcome. Thank you. So the first thing I want to touch on here is actually the quote that I've got scrolling across the bottom. If you look at it, it says, "Her surrender is not romantic. It is the annihilation of the self that deceives." And this is something that's very important with regard to submission, because I think that people have a very warped understanding of what submission is. And surely there is joy, there's good feelings that come from submission. I'm not going to say that doesn't exist. However, what this really means here is that, most people think that surrender is about affection, passion, or the feeling of devotion. And that's the romantic interpretation, right? Soft, emotional, aesthetic, right? But the harsher, more ascetic mindset, it rejects all that. So in this frame, the self that deceives is the ego. It's the part of her that resists truth, clings to pride, rationalizes disobedience, manufactures excuses, and tries to stay in control in various subtle ways. Surrender is not about love or sweetness. It's about destroying the layers of the ego, self-protection, pretense, and emotional manipulation that block her from total obedience. So, true surrender is the death of her performative femininity. It's the death of her good girl facade. It's the death of her defenses. The death of the part of her that pretends to obey when convenient. The death of her that, the part of her that negotiates, bargains, or seeks leverage. It's the ego death, not romance. So in the ascetic logic, the slave becomes pure only when the last trace of ego, the one that lies to her man, to herself, to her purpose, is burned out. And that's really what's happening, okay? It's not about being swept up in devotion. Submission is about the ruthless destruction of the inner voice that resists obedience. Nothing poetic, nothing gentle about it, nothing flowery, just truth stripped of sentiment. And that's really what's going on. Like, you really want to like get into the nuts and bolts of the nuts and bolts of submission. That's what it is. At the most like objective, plain, clear elements of it. It's not about how it feels. And this is the confusion that a lot of people they make that mistake, right? In thinking that it's something about what you feel. And like I said, these feelings do come, right? They do thrive and they come about. I mean, we are human after all. But that's not the goal, right? These things will arise for sure. Okay, we can feel good about the states that we're in, the development that we're making, and who we become. But the pathway ahead, that's not what it is, right? That's just something that kind of crops up every now and then while you're on the path. So, and the same thing actually applies to the dominant. The dominant, it's the same exact thing. It's the stripping away of the ego. And I was talking to a client today about this, and this is why, in my practice, I don't use names. I don't use my given name. Occasionally, very, very occasionally, and I think only in writing a couple of times, my sub has said Mr. Justin, right? It's been only, I think, like maybe twice that I've seen this, maybe 3 times, and it's a close Mr. J every now and then, but mostly it's my lord. Long ago it was sir, daddy, my son. All these like archetypal type titles, and the same for me, right? I don't use the name. I haven't used a name in quite some time, and it wasn't even the given name. It was a name that I had her choose to sort of embody this identity. But I stopped using it, and it's just been her titles, okay? And there's a purpose to that, because it's not about the I, right? It's what this does is it helps the framing of the self within the dynamic to become more of an entity. And the client that I was talking with today, we were discussing this, but in terms of, say, military, okay? So you could have this, say, like a lieutenant, and his name is Bob Jones, but nobody calls him Bob Jones. Even he doesn't call himself Bob Jones, okay? At best, maybe his superiors might call him Lieutenant Jones, but for everyone below him and sometimes above him, they will just call him Lieutenant, and that's it. Because he's not this separate self. He is an entity, a representation of a particular position that has a role, that it serves a purpose. And that's kind of what you want to get into, and that's the thinning of the ego. And the military does this. Granted, they do it in a very fast and forceful way, but because like they don't have the time. They need to like prep soldiers for combat, but here we don't have that kind of pressure. We can take our time with a gentle stripping of the ego, and at the end, it's not me who's doing these things. I'm embodying an entity that is a role, that is a position, that is a symbol, and she is as well. And this is when we can really create a fantastic synergy. But of course, to get there, it requires a lot of trust, like trusting within yourself, of course, like both for the dom and the sub, but then trusting the other to also like embody these things. It's a really weird thing. It kind of reminds me of like, that image of, like 2 young teenage boys standing on a dock looking at a cold lake, and like they want to jump in, but they don't want to be first, and like kind of like trying to like trick or goad or mess around with each other's heads to see like who can go first. because it requires, you can't really like tiptoe your way in, right? You really just have to, at some point, just take a step. And so that requires like a big amount of trust in yourself and letting go of your fear, because that's all ego as well, right? Because if you really break it down, it's like, well, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? And all that stuff, it's constructions, it's mental formations, it's attachments, it's beliefs, it's perceptions, all stuff that has been formulated over time that you didn't exactly choose. It's just things that sort of kind of coalesced and came together as a mass. And it feels real because it's now attached to what you think is you. And so now this is like something important, right? Your feelings. But it's just feelings. Feelings, they ride on the surface. Emotions, they go much deeper, and they're much harder to kind of like cut up into sections. Feelings, you can say like, oh, happy, sad, depressed, anxious, all these things. But emotion, it's all very amorphous, and it's hard to kind of like clearly put emotions into boxes. All right, well, that's how I see it anyways. I don't know if scientifically that's how it works, but anyways. So, when you're thinking about dominance and submission, like consider these like longer range things, okay? Because if you keep at it long enough, it stops being about those things, and perhaps it'll come full circle. Like there's an old Buddhist phrase that Bruce Lee actually borrowed, when he was teaching Jeet Kune Do. But I will use the should I use the Buddhist one? I'll use the Bruce Lee version. So he was talking about martial arts, and he said, to the novice, a punch is just a punch and a kick is just a kick. And he said to the intermediate, a punch is more than just a punch and a kick is more than just a kick, right? Because there's the technical stuff and, the breakdown and all this stuff, very, very like, attention on. And then he said to the master, a punch is just a punch and a kick is just a kick. So perhaps I'm caught in the intermediate, and I'll come full circle and kind of let go of that as well and say, well, it's just about spanking. Who knows? I don't know. But I do know that it's important to thin out your ego and make yourself less important in a dynamic. And I don't know, perhaps that's what was originally intended when a man and woman were to come together in matrimony. I think that was the original idea, two becoming one. Like this, the separate self gets dissolved. And I think, generally speaking, we've lost the spirit of that. And, we rely on institution and structure and, ritual that has totally lost all of its symbolism to kind of take the place of what's supposed to happen internally, right? Good day, little one. Hope you're having a good day and you're keeping your hands busy. Boxing plug. What's up, man? Haven't seen you in a bit. Eugene. Uncle Guns, thank you for posting my links. Again, if follow this link or just go to the website, thedominance.academy.com, if any of this is resonating with you this evening, and click that top right button that's real big and book yourself a free consultation for us to just have a chat for 30 to 45 minutes and get things churning, right? There's no time like the present because the present is the only time. Good evening, glad and grateful to be here. Cool. I am glad you're feeling that way. So, I want to talk about leading with leadership in intimacy, okay? And this is something that I think also, a lot of this stuff just flies over guys' heads, because you're just kind of stuck on the surface, And I don't blame you, like we're trained to, because that's where we are most easily manipulated and controlled, okay, is when we are engaged with surface level stuff, you know. Um, it keeps us, when our mind is distracted and it's bouncing, okay? The more your mind bounces, the less grounded it can be, which means it can most easily be directed, okay? Imagine like a fighter who's just got like bouncing all the time. You ever see fighters who are like that? Usually like novice, maybe like sport karate things where they're just like bouncing up and down. It's so easy. If you just shove them, they'll just go flying and stumble around, okay? But someone who's like really grounded and they're not dancing, okay? Like imagine like a traditional Thai fighter. They don't have like dancing, prancing footwork. They're pretty flat-footed and grounded. Or if you like shove them, they're probably not going to stumble, you know? It's hard to move someone who's grounded, but if you keep the mind scattered, you can easily push it in different directions by utilizing that scattered energy. So, keep that in mind, okay? So it's when the mind is that way, it's very easy to manipulate, coerce, redirect, and so on. And in that, okay, if you utilize the same sort of tactics, you can actually do this with other people and, flood them in certain ways that scatters their mind, and then you can take that scattered energy and redirect it. I like to do this with eroticism, but it seems to be more beneficial to everybody involved. Isn't that right, kitten? So, on leadership and intimacy, men, they think leadership and intimacy is about being dominant, right? Whatever their weird vision of that is, okay? It's usually incorrect anyways. But they think it's about lines or a look, commands, techniques, or some kind of like bedroom charisma, right? And it's not. Leadership and intimacy is about who you are when the clothes are on. Because a woman who does not decide how to surrender based on the moment, right? A woman does not decide how to surrender based on the moment. She decides based on the man. So let's break this down in the way it actually plays out, okay? So, how to lead without becoming controlling. Leadership, in its most purest form, is giving direction. Control is insecurity, and women can feel the difference in under 3 seconds. Controlling energy comes from fear. Fear she'll reject you. Fear you're not enough. Fear you're going to lose her. Fear she'll wander. Fear she'll pull away. And a man who leads with his intent is grounded. A man controls when his intent is anxious. So what does real leadership look like? Okay? It's simple. You decide the plan, you set the tone, you provide the direction, you hold the emotional structure, and you communicate your preferences clearly. Women want that. They relax into that. They soften into that. And you can see this in very basic layman's terms, all right? So you have a situation where, say it's maybe a date night is coming up, and she says, "Hey, honey, where would you like to go for our date night?" And he says, whatever you like, whatever you want. He really doesn't care. And it's fine that he doesn't care, all right? What's not fine is he's not providing any direction. It's that unknown, right? And so if you give her a known, even if she doesn't like it, she's going to like it. And in what I mean by that is that it's going to give a sense of okay, this road has guardrails. It has some kind of direction. It's clear to me. It's defined in some kind of way. And that's what I mean by liking it. Maybe she doesn't approve of it sometimes, okay? Sometimes she does, but that doesn't matter, okay? It's just about providing the plan. And this is what allows them the opportunity to soften. It's not a guarantee, of course, but it gives them the opportunity to soften. because the unknown is both a great fear for women, and it's also a great set for arousal, because the I guess the positive side of the unknown is anticipation. And anticipation, looking forward to something, creates that positive tension that makes, between her legs warm. It causes it to jump on its own, twitch on its own, become wet. Like it's that sort of thing. But the fearful unknown, that causes tension. Okay? That causes the inside and the chest to kind of squeeze and tighten up. All right? So by providing direction with the guardrails, it gives a sense of like, okay, this is known. At the very least, this is known. And that is what causes some relaxation, some softening. But leadership becomes controlling the moment you push your insecurities into her. Okay? So that comes up like, where are you? Why didn't you text? Why did you wear that? Don't talk to him. Are you cheating? That's not a man leading. That's a man leaking. Leadership is guidance. It's containment. It's not restriction. She gives you trust. You give her structure. That's the trade. But the thing is that if you've got fear, if you've got insecurities, if you've got, I talk about like a cup that's not full with yourself, you're going to use the structure in order to protect that cup that's not full. You're going to use it so that your insecurities aren't triggered. You're going to use structure so that your fears aren't triggered. And this is how a woman feels controlled. It's a totally different thing when you say, the doors are open. You are welcome to be here and you're welcome to go. It's quite all right. You have free will. And this is, if she has a high enough interest in you, this is going to feel awkward to her, especially if she's used to, various inputs of other guys who are really trying to get at her, trying to nail her down, trying to control her, and trying to contain her, not out of safety and guidance, but out of fear, their own fears. And this always backfires, always. It's just like a cat. You grab a cat and you're sitting down, you put it on your lap. Very rarely will the cat get comfortable and just stay there. Like 9 times out of 10, it's going to get up and just walk away. Because you just can't do that with the pussy, right? The pussy cat needs to come onto your lap when you're not trying to make it stay. It will stay. And then sometimes it won't let you get up. It just permanently affixes itself onto your lap. And she just wants to sit there forever. So the second one here is about handling conflict without emotional chaos. And this one's huge because this really shows her consciously and unconsciously, can you handle shit? Like, can you handle your own shit? Can you handle her shit? And so women, they will test a man in conflict more than anywhere else in a relationship. And not because she hates you, not because she's dramatic, not because she has no respect for you. It's because conflict reveals your center. And sometimes she needs a reminder of that. Especially if the relationship has turned into complacency. Okay? So men fall into 2 failures. One, they become emotional with her. They raise their voice with yelling or screaming, swearing, defending, over-explaining, arguing, lecturing, panicking, okay? Or the second one, and they shut down and disappear. They stonewall, they withdraw, they sleep on it, they go quiet, they become passive-aggressive. And all of this feels like abandonment to her. And I, one of my guys, he has progressed beyond this quite successfully. And he had this habit because he was never really taught like how how to just be there with her emotions, and not be affected by them, or be well, just anything by them. Like he was, what I talk about, the mountain, right? The mountain mind. He's just unmoved, and just allowing her to just be in whatever storm she was in. And so I can't remember what it was. I don't think it was something to do with him. I think it was something to do with her family. I don't quite remember the story. And she was kind of just releasing all this, like just the feelings and the thoughts and all this stuff. And he was at the stage where he was like, I kind of only like you when you're in a good mood. And like, I don't blame him. Like, who wants to hang out with somebody who's not in a good mood? Like, it's pretty natural. But this is not how you need to be as a man, right? I mean, you can, but it's not going to create a profound, intimate connection between the two of you, is it? So really, I was telling him, look, you can't do that, because when she was experiencing this and sharing with him about her strong emotions and what was going on with her family, and she was looking for something. She was looking for something that was solid and grounded, something that was the complete opposite of what she was feeling. And he basically put her in a rowboat and just kind of gently pushed her out into the middle of the lake and just let her glide out there until she came to a soft resting place in the middle of the lake alone. And like, in essence, that's what he did. And he was just basically, I can't remember what he said, but he's like, okay, you seem like really upset. I think maybe it was like over the phone or something like that. And he's like, listen, I'll let you kind of do your thing and like kind of work that out. And, when you're feeling better, just, come back around and contact me. And I was like, listen, I know you mean well, but basically what you've done is you put her in a little rowboat without any oars and just gently push her out into the middle of the lake. And she's just sitting out there in this middle of this dark lake by herself. And then expect her to like kind of swim back after she's feeling better and pretend like everything's okay. And really what you've done is you have pushed her to figure out her own containment. And that's okay. Like, I guess if you don't have a man, like, you're going to have to figure that out. Okay. But it's so much more beneficial to both people if he's to learn the containment necessary for her to just flow. And then he can kind of put her back into shape, and she feels better. She feels more connected. She feels more grounded, more calm, and more erotic, because now all of that energy shifts. And then so he started doing this. And he noticed how quickly she shifted, versus when he would push her out into the lake, those emotions took much longer to process, right? Because it was just on her own. And then she'd have to come back and kind of contain herself once again. So all that took time. And he was so surprised at how quickly that when he was grounded, he was just there, unaffected. And, and still doing certain things like slight infantilization, where he was like, maybe come here, sit on my lap, right? And she would sit on his lap, he would hold her and just listen, just let her talk. And so fast, all that stuff just dissipated. And I was like, don't say shit. Don't offer advice. Don't, like, unless she asks you directly, like, what do you think about this? Say nothing, right? If anything, just acknowledge. And say, wow, that sounds really stressful, right? I could see how that would make you sad. Just acknowledgement, that's it. And he was so surprised at how quickly the processes of going through certain emotions and then coming back to home was. And then I showed him, listen, you just harness that, right? Because that emotion's still there. It's just not in the state of whatever she was in before. It's still heightened, it's still there, but now it's neutral. And I showed him how he can turn that into something erotic. Now she can process this through her body, and everybody's winning. Everybody's having fun. Orgasms all around. Okay? And this is part of leading, is having that patience, right? Being unaffected allows you to think, sometimes not speak, or speak only when necessary. and then guide and create from that. And it becomes very easy. It only is hard when you are engaged with the feelings. Remember, let's talk about the feelings on the surface. When you're engaged with her feelings and you're trying to fix them because you're like, oh shit, this feels like pressure. I need to do something about it. I don't know what to do. So I'm freezing, or, I'm going to try to fix it as quick as possible. And I give her very sound, rational advice. And my friends are like, yeah, that sounds like sound, rational advice. Why doesn't she take it? And it's like, it's not about that. It's not about solving the problem. It's just about release. Like, women need to release. They're all about releasing, right? That's part of being the vessel that they are, like their bodies release once a month, right? Shedding the wall of the uterus. They release emotionally. Like, their orgasms are much more of a release than ours, because it's like this full body, mind, emotion thing, Yes. Lead comes from the Latin word laden, which meaning to show the way. Cool. Thank you for that little factoid. So, yeah, they fall into these two categories. Like I was saying, they become emotional with her, or they shut down, and both feel like abandonment. You know what leadership in conflict looks like? It looks like this. And I've already explained examples, but you stay steady while she's in chaos. You're not cold, you're not flat, you're not dismissive. You're just steady. And that's really all that's necessary. You listen, you understand the core of what she's saying, not the feelings mess all around it. You speak clearly, briefly, calmly. You don't defend yourself prematurely. You don't try to fix her situation or her feelings. You don't try to win a point, if it's something between the two of you, right? And then when it's your turn, like when she's kind of, you can sense when she's settled a little bit, you can say, all right, here's what we're going to do. And it can be something that doesn't even address her situation, right? Because she didn't ask for a solution. But you can then take that emotion, like I said, and harness it and change it, right? Once you see it's kind of like on its decline and it's been released. So you say, hey, listen, this is what we're going to do. And you could say, I'm going to grab some Epsom salts, I'm going to draw you a bath, we're going to put on some music, and you're going to relax, okay? Or you can get into some acupressure, you can do some massage, and start transmuting the emotion and the tension. All right. And that's part of containment. Because, so like that line, like that one sentence alone, it will reset what's going on here. When you say, okay, you acknowledge, all right, this is what we're going to do. And so what you're doing is you're not really acknowledging whatever shit she was talking about. You're acknowledging her state. And that's what you're going to guide, not the problems that she's dealing with. So that one line alone can reset the situation, because what she wants in conflict is not dominance, it's direction. Women want to know that even when they're emotionally chaotic, they are not with a man who becomes unstable. If you stay grounded, she can de-escalate. If you become chaotic, she remains chaotic and can sometimes escalate. Because someone has to hold the structure, okay? If you don't, then she will. She will become more dominant, but with her emotions, and she will resent you for it. Like 10 times out of 10. So how masculine direction creates feminine expression is that women thrive when the man provides two things. And I already mentioned them, direction and containment. So direction is basically, here's where we're going. This is what we're doing. Containment is, I've got the structure handled. And when those two things exist, the feminine can finally breathe. Her creativity opens, her eroticism opens, her emotions flow, her trust deepens, her body responds. Feminine energy is like water. It flows beautifully, but only inside a container. Without direction, she becomes anxious, clingy, masculine, resentful, chaotic, and she starts over-functioning because you're under-functioning. This is why so many women in modern relationships feel exhausted, and why they're, like, a lot of them are just checking out. Because they're forced to lead because the man won't, or he can't, or he doesn't know how to. Direction is not controlling. Direction is leadership. It's guiding. Okay? It's not pulling, it's saying, here's the path. So you say, we're going here at 8. We're doing this tonight. Get ready, wear something that makes you feel good. Come here, sit on daddy's lap, relax, I've got the rest handled. Phrases like that. And women fall into that, not because they're submissive, but because the masculine direction frees the feminine expression. And when a man is showing up this way, women stop complaining. A woman's complaining is almost never about the surface issue. It's about something deeper. She cannot feel the direction of the man she's following. When a man has no direction of his own, she picks at him, she nags, she criticizes, she micromanages, she loses respect. She feels unsafe. She feels she must lead. She becomes masculine. Essentially, she starts having to create her own containment. And she'll resent you for it. Women complain when the man has become stagnant, when his stillness is not a grounded stillness. It's a stillness that is light and not attached to the ground at all. But when a man has purpose, right? When he has direction, the entire dynamic shifts. He becomes consistent. He becomes decisive. He stops getting rattled. He becomes focused. He becomes less needy. He's more grounded. He stops leaking emotional insecurity. He stops looking externally for validation. He becomes predictable in strength. And then through that, remember, women are mirrors. They become quieter. They become softer, more supportive, more affectionate, more trusting, more obedient, more expressive, less reactive. And the reason why is because she can feel that he is becoming, that he is on his path. And she doesn't want to distract him from it. She wants to join him in it. Right? And this is the fault of so many guys. You know, I hear this with guys who are recently divorced. And they're like, I made her my whole world. Oh, women do not want that. Women do not want to be your whole world. They don't want to be your whole anything. They want you to have your world and join you in it. And sometimes hope to, like, not get in the way too much. Like that's really what they just want to be part of it. So her complaints dissolve because she no longer has to fill the vacuum for your missing purpose. A woman complains when she feels the masculine vacuum. She surrenders when she feels the masculine mission. So leadership and intimacy is not about power. It's about technique. It's not about technique. It's not about being the dom, okay? Leadership and intimacy is the natural result of who you are outside the bedroom. A man who leads with direction, stays steady in conflict. He has purpose and structure. He doesn't collapse into chaos. He owns his decisions. He lives by internal standards, and he's not coerced by emotion. Is a man who a woman will open up to. She'll obey, she'll trust, and follow without needing to be convinced. Women don't follow commands. They follow the man who's giving them. And when a man leads well, a woman becomes the best version of herself. Expressive, radiant, erotic, soft, supportive, devoted. Leadership doesn't limit the feminine. Leadership liberates it so that it can become expansive. And that's really the crux of it. Copy and paste Chris. Staying steady can be applied to life in general. The world can get wild, but the spiritual warrior stays grounded and stable regardless. Yep, absolutely. Yep. There was this book that I read. It really hit me hard when I first picked it up. It was by this this publisher called Shambhala Press, and I think it's Shambhala, Shambhala. And there was this book called The Sacred Path of the Warrior, and man, that hit me like a pillowcase full of bricks. Absolutely amazing book. So if you want to kind of like dive in deeper with this sort of thinking, okay, with life in general, not just women, really get that book, pick it up. Um, it was yeah, the thing, I think I started reading that early in college, or maybe at the end of high school, something like that. But one of my newer guys, he's dealing with addiction, and he's doing very well. He's just started on like his recovery path, and I'm really proud of him. And if you know anything about addiction and combining that with nice guy syndrome and insecurities and things like that, because they're all woven together, like all that shit. Okay, self-doubt, self-rejection. And you could imagine how a wife might respond to that as a mirror. Yeah, it's yeah, you can imagine, like, they're not going to feel soft, open, affectionate, erotic, horny, you know like seeing a guy who's like that. It doesn't not, like, exactly make them want to drop to their knees and open their mouth. um and not even like out of like horniness, but like out of reverence, right? That's not going to happen. So he really had to come to terms. He's realized that it's how he's been showing up in his own life for himself as well as in his marriage. It just it's not conducive to growth for anybody, him, his wife, his children. And so he was like, all right, I'm sick of this shit. I really need to change things. And he's been doing fan fucking tastic. Granted, he's just starting, but the changes that he's making in just the self-awareness, minding his emotions, using the hatchet and compass on his own mind, he's been able to make a shift in how he shows up. He took his heavy bag and he hung it back in his garage. He's been doing that. He's been doing the morning routines that I give all of my clients, and he's really turning things around just in these little things. And he noticed that his already, like, after just a couple of weeks, his wife is not complaining as much. She's like sitting close to him. Before they would kind of watch TV, she'd be on one end of the couch, he'd be on the other. Now she's like sitting next to him, like she wants to be close to him. All right, because when you stop flailing about and your energy's scattered, okay, then and it's more condensed, that creates a gravitational field. And the woman who is with you, she wants to get close to that. Like, she's just drawn into it, almost beckoned or pulled. And makes me thinking like what is it, like Star Trek or something like that, when they use like the gravitational beam, and they're like they shoot the gravity field out, and it pulls the other ship towards them. Oh no, we're caught in a gravity field. It's like that sort of shit. But it's like that. Yeah, she gets kind of caught in your gravitational field and gets pulled in, and that's what's happening to her. And he's like, holy shit, like this is transformative. And I don't even have to do anything directly with her. I'm just doing myself properly, and she is just naturally responding to it. And this is the truth of the matter. When a guy's like, well, how do I do this to make the girl like that? you know and really it just comes down to handling yourself. And the thing is that you might be able to hide your insecurities with certain behaviors. Okay, you might be able to hide your anger, right? Because he had a lot of anger. He still does. All right, and he's having to face his anger, now that he's sober. But you can hide your anger, you can hide your rage, your pain, your fear, and you can fool yourself, you can fool people, you can fool the woman's eyes, okay? You can fool her ears, but you can't fool her instinct. And that's the thing. And maybe you can, but just for a short while, and then it becomes clear after a while. And the instinct rules, and it's because what's written on the code in her DNA is a sense of survival. And the survival is not through like what's physically dangerous, right? That's written on our code, right? That's why men, like when we're walking around, at least I hope you're not like this, but like when I'm walking around, I'm not in a daze. Like I am always scanning, checking different things. I'm watching traffic, I'm checking people, I'm reading intent off of body language. And it's not even like a conscious thing. It's like I'm just always on. Maybe it's because like I'm a father, or maybe it's just because I'm a man, or a combination of the two, but it's just something I do. And like I remember when it was freshman year of college, and granted I was doing like a lot of training, and it was with this guy who was basically preparing for World War III. And like his martial arts school is like basically a bunker. And then I went away to college. And the first thing that I did when I got to the dorms is I went all the way up to the top floor. I think it was like 6 floors. And I did a sweep of like the layout of the building, because it had this weird shape. It wasn't just a standard like rectangle. I think it was like horseshoe shaped. And so I was scanning and like going through floor by floor to see like where exits were, where like fire extinguishers were, fire alarms. Like I was just reading the whole fucking place so that I knew what the fuck was going on, the emergency phones that were around, like I think it was like every other floor. But it's just something in us. Women they have that, but it's not from a outward like physical thing. It's like we can face that. We can face things with our brawn, right? We can take certain damages, like I think a study showed that like men's eyes, we can see fast moving objects much better, and like kind of like the brain registers it faster than a woman does. It goes back to like our hunting and gathering times, okay? And they've developed other things, right? Because they're generally smaller, not as strong, not as fast, so their minds adapted, right? And what was kind of evolved on their DNA in their minds was the same sense of look for danger and look for ways I can survive, but more through subterfuge, more through reading things, okay? Reading how something feels, and then learning how to evade or adapt to that situation, right? So like I think many girls have been around maybe a guy that makes them feel a little weird, and they notice like, oh, if I just like smile and produce a false giggle, it will settle him down, and then that maybe he'll go away. Or if I give him my number, maybe he'll go away. It's stuff like that. And I forget where I was going with this, about the protection and mindset and things like that. But I guess I meant to say is that, my client, he is, he's like releasing all this stuff, and he's becoming more grounded, and she's reading him. Okay. So before, when he was scattered and all this shit, I think this is where I was going. She was reading his volatility, his lack of grounding, and he was, it did not produce a feeling of safety, because on her DNA, that survival instinct was like, ugh, this is not cool. Like, I don't feel right around him. And this blew his mind because he's like, but you're my wife. Yeah, by title. Okay? But titles don't create essence. Titles don't create being. You know, like, a title won't make you the entity of wife or husband. Okay? You have to become these things, regardless of titles. You know, and this is why I think like people have just such a warped sense of like the institution of marriage. They think that this will actually like coerce behavior into being a certain way. And it's not. It's how it's who is there and how they're showing up. That's what makes the difference. It doesn't fucking matter what's on paper. What matters is who and how. And so his how started showing up differently. And her sensitivity to danger was like, hey, wait a second. This kind of feels good. You know, and she started settling in closer to his presence. And he was like, holy shit. Like, this is, like, I haven't seen this in 5 years. 5 years he hasn't been intimate with his own wife because she did not feel safe around him. And when a woman doesn't feel safe, she can't relax. She can't relax. She can't get horny. She can't get horny. Her pussy doesn't get wet. Right? And they like to have a wet pussy. Right? But it doesn't work if they're not feeling safe. Right? Everything freezes up. Everything becomes tense. Okay? So this is something that has to be kept in mind, that how you show up, who is there, makes a greater impact than anything that you're actually doing. It makes a greater impact than your income. It makes a greater impact than your fitness. It makes a greater impact than your style or what's in your wardrobe. It makes a greater impact than your car or the type of home you live in, or how many homes you have, or how many cars you have, or what the size of and quality of your social circle is. None of those, like, all those things are great to have in life by, I think, anyone's metric, okay? But it doesn't produce a strong emotion. It tickles the feelings, for sure, okay? And girls certainly love having their feelings tickled. But it does not produce emotion. Because, you know, when a girl is rubbing her pussy, she's not thinking about a Rolex watch. She's not thinking about a nice car. She's not thinking about a fancy apartment or a famous group of friends. She's thinking about other things. Okay? That's not, like, that cool stuff is not part of fantasy. It's not part of arousal. Okay? And you might be thinking, oh, like, whatever, that's just such a big deal, or not a big deal, it's just arousal. No, it's not just arousal. Remember, women are integrated. There is no separation. We can do this. We cannot look at women the way we see ourselves or from our own lens. Okay? We have to see women as they are, perhaps from their lens, to understand them. Okay, we can separate things. We can say, okay, my eroticism is over here, my body's over here, my mind is over here, my emotions are over there. And we can kind of have these like compartments, like little cubicles of like this team that's working in an office. And every little aspect has their own little cubicle. With women, they're all in one big cubicle. Their minds, their heart, their body, their eroticism, their spirit, they're all sitting at this big round table together. And so when you affect one, it involves everybody. And this is why you can lead through eroticism. You know, I've talked about this, about how you can use sexuality and, erotic moments like as a starting point for leadership, as a starting point for influence. When we talk about like positive mantras, while like I've mentioned, like during heightened levels of arousal, right? Like just prior to orgasm, when they can still kind of think, right? Or during the ramp up period towards orgasm, you can start filling their head with positive words, okay? And not only just saying like you're so beautiful, like that's cool and all, like great, but make her say it, okay? While her arousal is climbing, and you look her directly in the eyes and say I'm beautiful. Say it, right? You make her say it. I'm beautiful. Like as her arousal is climbing, like it's powerful, okay? Because these are obviously things that women largely have a problem with. When they look into the mirror, they have that a mild form of dysmorphia. Like even the most beautiful girl in the world, she'll see a troll in the mirror, or it will be covered up with copious amounts of coping confidence, and it's not real, right? Because real confidence is calm, settled, centered. It doesn't have a big voice, right? It's coped with an overabundance of confidence, which means it's fake. I'm trying to layer it on, like thick layers of makeup. Same thing. And but you, by doing this, you're directly speaking to. This is when I talk about talking to the core. That's what you're doing. When she's, say, like playing with herself, or you're playing with her, and you tell her, say I'm beautiful, and you have her repeat it over and over and over, while her pussy is getting stimulated, and maybe you're like in her ear, just like right by the side of her head, in like a low, controlled but commanding voice. You say it again, right? I mean, you can like increase the tension, okay? You grab her hair, give it a very strong yank, okay? So that like her head is like tilted. Say it again, right? And you're pushing. Just I'm beautiful, right? Any sort of phrase. I love who I am. I am my daddy's treasure. Any sort of thing like that. It doesn't always have to go into degradation, right? Which is the common thing, right? Oh, you make her say I'm such a slut. Make her say I'm a whore. I'm a worthless cum dumpster. Like that stuff, it's fun, okay? And it does have a strong, useful psychological effect of helping destroy the ego, okay? Destroy the pride, okay? So these things have to be understood as, yes, they're fun and, cool, erotic, whatever. But you can also come at it with the frame that this can have purpose. That I can actually use this to harness her mind through her eroticism, through her erotic energy, right? And using that as fuel, right, to penetrate her mind. It's sort of like, with like hypnosis, right? Where there's like, the induction, and then like the deepener, and then the suggestions and all that stuff. It's the same sort of thing, but instead of like through like deep relaxation to get to the subconscious, you're using heightened arousal to get to the subconscious, because of all the the members there of her being are sitting at the table all together, okay? You start with the one, say like the erotic energy, and it starts overriding all these things. The conscious mind starts to go a little bit sleepy, all right? The conscious mind gets a little bit loopy. And then you'll notice that as she's getting more and more aroused, her conscious mind will stop functioning very well. And she'll start fumbling over her words, okay? And like she'll just start becoming like slightly incoherent, a little drunk, okay? And if you want, you can just let it be like that and just allow her to stumble her way towards that climax. Or you can drive it further into something more using force, okay? And then you can kind of put in just like a little dash of embarrassment, where you kind of like grab her again and say, I didn't quite hear that. I didn't quite make that out. With that seriousness of like, we're doing business here, woman. And it can kind of like like forcefully bring her out of that liquid gooey brain that you've created, and kind of like pushing it into a form just long enough for her conscious mind to say, oh shit, like, oh, like kind of like sort of shocked a little bit back into her conscious mind to then speak clearly again. And that alone can have a lot of power of coming in and out of these states of like the drunken subconscious rising, and then like the less drunk conscious mind coming through. And, and all this is in effect to, like I was mentioning before, with the mind and how, media and government and all these things, they want to keep your mind scattered so that they can have influence over it, right? You scatter the conscious mind, and then you can easily access the subconscious mind and then control behaviors, control how people think, control how people feel, the choices that they make. Okay. It's the same exact thing. Okay. So through the intensity of arousal and things like that, you're then disrupting her conscious mind, and then using, certain phrases, mantras, commands, whatever, to then speak directly, right? Because you've now like, or I'm not permanently, but temporarily fractured her conscious mind. You've chopped into little pieces through the heightened arousal, right? And you're just like edging her again and again and again, slowly creeping up and then backing off, slowly creeping up and then backing off. And it'll just turn her brain into blended soup. Okay? And then boom, right there's the subconscious. Like, you guys ever see the first Dune movie? I like it so much better than, well, I don't know, I can't really say that. But I thought that the thing that Frank Herbert came up with, because I don't think it was in the books, but that holographic armor that they were wearing, that the Atreides were wearing, I thought that was so fucking cool. And anything with velocity, it could block, right? It couldn't penetrate it. So if you like threw a rock at it, it would just like hit the armor and bounce off, this like hologram armor. But if you had a blade and slowly pushed through the hologram, you could stab the wearer or cut them. And they even had like special guns, right? When they shot a bullet and it first hit that thing, the velocity would slow down, like it was programmed or something, like to slow down enough to go through the armor. But it's kind of like that, right? That holographic armor is like the conscious mind. Okay, the fast things it can block. That's what it's made for. Okay, and it has some rigidness to it, but it's the slow blade, right, that can penetrate into the subconscious. And that's basically what you're doing. You're coming in slow, all right, while like kind of like distracting on the surface, and then while that's happening, you come in with a slow blade and just slowly like sink it right into her. Okay, figuratively, of course. Relax, guys. But this is where like leadership in intimacy takes on a whole other form. And because now she's like, what do you like? Imagine what would happen if you keep doing this. If you're seeing your woman, multiple times a week, or you live together, and you're harnessing her mind in eroticism. Maybe you're both doing the building up of the self-praise, the self-worth, the self-affirmation, that sort of stuff, and then you're also breaking down ego, making her say like, I am nothing. Right? So now you have this thing where there's like, I love myself and I am nothing. Like that to me is like a most fantastic, beautiful combination, because they kind of cancel each other out but support each other at the same time. Okay, like to me that's like God state. Nothing but something, but it's not a something based on identity, ego, pride, independence, job, whatever, this title, that title, whatever, right? It's a sense of self, like a positing self based on emotional state. So her like sense of I is starting to come from how she feels due to your anchoring, due to your guiding. And that's a whole other more powerful self. While at the same time, you're having her say, I'm nothing. While she, her arousal is like peeking through the roof. It's not like a means of like breaking her down to torture her, right? Or to make her less than, okay? It's actually to break her down so she's more than. Because the things that we think we are, they're actually limitations. They say like, oh, our experiences are, they make us what we are. Sure. But is that a genuine, authentic self? Or is that a manufactured self based on those experiences and perceptions, beliefs, and conditioning? Right? Yes, it is a self. It is a self. But is it the self? No. So just imagine the type of the connection that can be awarded through how she's going to feel through you about herself. And it's not like this self that she's known, okay? It's like a whole other entity. And that neither of you will probably ever be able to describe. Because the same sort of shit is likely happening to you because you're letting go of all that stuff as well. This is connection. It's not about like, oh man, we have the same hobby. I mean, that's cool, like, and that's certainly beneficial. Just like, having a nice car or a boat or, fancy wardrobe, like that's cool. It's nice to have, but it's not defining, right? Like I'm pleased that my sub and I have a love for fast motorcycles, sport bikes. Like when I found that out, I was overjoyed, right? And because it's just so cool, right? Because the thing is, like, when you have a thing in your life that you really, really enjoy and that you've like learned about and so on, there's a certain, you develop a certain feeling for that thing, whatever it is, roller skating, I don't know, cooking, sewing, I don't know what the fuck, but for me, it's motorcycles and riding. So if I were to ever say one day, baby, I need to go for a ride, she would understand completely, right? Just say, today's just been a day, I'm going for a ride. And she'll go, I get it. And no explanations necessary. And so I think that's one of the benefits of having, say, crossover interests, because you just get it, right? Of course, it's not necessary for a good connection. It's just a good bonus, right? But I think it's good to, either seek people out or, just consider yourself lucky if you do come across a woman who has similar interests. This is why I tell guys, like, I've had like a couple of like really nerdy pop culture type guys, younger dudes, who are just looking for dating advice. I'm like, well, what are you into? And they're like, well, I play video games, I read manga, I watch anime, I collect, those like really expensive figurines of like, manga characters, video game characters, superhero characters, like 6 inches tall or so, posable, and they're like, I don't know, $100 a pop because they're so well made, and usually like imported from Japan or something like that. And they're into that shit. So I'm like, I used to go to conventions, comic book conventions, anime conventions, toy conventions, because I was always having tables and with my illustration to put my face out there, make connections, and all that good stuff. And so the girls that were there, they were just like these guys. They're like just these weird, social recluse, nerdy, geeky, like obsessive pop culture nerds, and they're cute, but in like a weird way, right? And I'm like, listen, just go talk to these girls, and they're gonna be just as awkward as you, and everyone can be awkward together. It'll be fantastic. Like, talking to people at these conventions. I mean, unless they're like one of the professionals, but the people who just go, like the droves, no one will look you in the eye. I can't say no one, but it's rare that someone's comfortable looking you in the eye when you meet, and they're like looking down or like looking around, like they won't make eye contact, because they largely just kind of spend their time like online or in the room reading, things like that, not having much human to human connection. So it's like they all kind of come out of the woodworks for these conventions. I'm like, dudes, just go there, right? That's where you're gonna find your girl, right? Who's into the same shit that you're into. And you can, like, and she's like, hey, like, do you collect Pokemon? And you're like, yeah, I do. And she's like, oh, cool. Like, and she'll get it because you're already on the level, you know? So there's benefit to, to having crossover interests, but like you can't ride on that stuff. That's not the glue, right? The glue is how you're showing up, and not having any kind of fear, but not in this like bold, courageous warrior sort of way. Okay, having no fear, it's just in a very calm way. I feel like seeing like an elephant. Like, I don't think of, elephants are just giant lumbering creatures. I couldn't imagine them like expressing fear. I mean, maybe they do, like if they're like being, tackled by a whole pride of lions. But in general, it just seems like, yeah, like nothing can really affect them. And kind of like that, like embodying that sort of fearlessness. It's not of this like bold warrior, courageous thing with your sword over your head. That's not being fearless. It's just being without fear, letting it go. Okay, which brings about calm, and and being able to communicate from there, being able to lead from there. And this is why I find it so important for men to get in touch with their desires. You'd be surprised at how disconnected you are from your desires. Keep rubbing. That you will, like, guys will be like, I'll give them an assignment, and I'll say like, hey, just make a list of like 100 desires, and they'll get stuck at like 20. And it's like, how? And it's because they're conditioned to not want anything, like only want the bare necessities: a job, a roof, clothing, food, car. Like, those are the necessities. And if you want anything beyond that, and like a woman, okay, but if you want anything beyond that, you're kind of judged a little bit. Oh, you've got a car and a motorcycle and a jet ski, like, where do you find the time? Judgment, like this crazy judgment, but yeah, men will have like scrutiny applied to them for desiring things beyond the functional and the necessary. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, that guys have. And so if you want to lead well, you have to actually get in touch with your desires, to get in touch with your needs and your desires. But I think it's even more important to get in touch with your desires, because when you say, when you're in these positions where you like have this idea, you're like, oh, I would like her to do this, okay? Where you're saying, you know what, when I come home, I would love for her to greet me at the door, like on her knees, holding like a pair of slippers, right? And you just love the vision of that. Like, you're like, man, now I would love to come home to something like that. All right. Being afraid to say that is a problem. Like that's a guy problem. You know, he's scared. He's got you know, uh, he's afraid of the rejection. He's afraid of resistance, right? And if that's in him, if he does muster the courage to say these things, because he's not let go of the fear and the tension, it's going to come off in his command or his expressing of his desire, and it's going to fuck it up and bring about the resistance that he was so afraid of. So it's having the desires unapologetically because you just want it. And it's okay to want. It's okay to want these things. And the more comfortable you are with, like, yeah, of course it's all right for me to want shit, especially for my life and what's happening in it, right? For the things that I have control over. So if I want to be greeted with her, quietly kneeling and holding a pair of slippers on her lap for me, that's what I want. And you should be able to say this. Like with just the calm conviction of, just in the same way you would say, someone says, what kind of ice cream do you want? And you say, I would like chocolate with sprinkles. It's the same fucking thing. Just, this is what I want. Okay. But being okay with your desires also allows you to embrace your kinks. It allows you to brace and explore your eroticism. And it allows you to command better in the bedroom, all right, and out of the bedroom. So you can say, bend over without any sort of hesitation, with complete comfort, because you want to see her bent over. You want to see her on her knees. So you say, get on your knees, or you say, kneel. You want her to open her mouth. You just say, open. You want her to get naked. You say, take off your clothes. And being really comfortable just expressing your wants. And it's interesting because the more comfortable you are in expressing your desires, the more she can feel your calm conviction, the more she's willing to go along with whatever you're saying. I mean, as long as it's not like far into her zones of discomfort and fear, right? Obviously, if there's some sort of limit that you're pushing into, then she's likely not going to. It all depends. Depends on, like, maybe the level of her devotion. Her mind just be like, fuck it, like, sir said do this, it gets done. But I would say that's, a very developed level, right? But at first, I think it's just really important that the guy get really in touch with his desires. Because I think at the heart of the woman's, her core, is part of that song that it sings is that I wish to serve. I wish to be of use. Remember when I was saying she would like you to have your path, your vision, your purpose, your world, and she wants to join that. She wants to be a part of it. Well, how someone becomes a part of something is to become useful within that. Right? That's kind of like how a job works. Right? You're like, hey, I like that company over there, or that business over there. I want to be a part of that business. And then you say, hey, can I be part of that business? And they're like, sure. This is how I want you to show up. This is how you can be useful to us. And you say, okay, then you do those things. And then there's this, both ends get rewards for that participation. So that's kind of what it is. It's so the clearer you are with yourself, clearer you are with what you want, clearer you are with the type of relationship that you want to create, okay? Clearer you are with how you define yourself, okay? And not that superficial stuff, but something that's more intrinsic. The easier these things will become. Excuse me. Sorry, the dog just started going crazy. So I hope that I hope all that makes sense. Right? I hope this is resonating with you guys. I know it doesn't. I know it can sound perhaps overwhelming. And just like fuck, like where do I start? How do I, like, really? Is it that complicated getting with a girl? It's not. It's quite easy getting with a girl, but development, yes, it's not that easy. Development is not easy. Okay, and that's just what happens. Nothing easy just happen. All right, maybe this is better. I feel like things are back on. Let me know. Oh, I should have checked this. All right. Well, if it's oh, okay, great. Thank you. Copy and paste. Jeez, like you're the only one. I appreciate that. I don't know what happened, but things are back on. So what I was getting at, pardon the dead air, but what I was getting at with like the IKEA, I was talking about IKEA furniture and handmade furniture. The carpenter who gathers his materials, and he from planning stages all the way up to the carving and the finishing, and you're going to get a better quality. It's going to take longer. It's going to take more of the involvement for the carpenter to make that 9-drawer dresser out of wood. And I think that, when you're looking at relationships, you have to, and you're looking at leading, you're looking at influence, like all of these things that are part of it. Looking at it as something that you are crafting, right? Rather than just something you're piecing together with an Allen key like IKEA furniture. Okay, this is really the mindset that you want to come at these things. So, but I feel like that break there, it kind of fucked with the flow. But I'm pretty much done here. So I hope that was useful for you guys, and it opened your eyes to certain things and ways of looking at your interactions with yourself as well as with women. Okay. So I appreciate you being here live with me. And for those who are catching on the replay, I appreciate you as well. Please take a moment, go to thedominance.academy.com and check out the tutorial section, the ebooks, coaching. And if you have any questions, just book a call, or you can send me a message through the website. And, I'll get back to you within 24 hours and grab that free consultation so we can get talking and put things into order. All right. Thanks once again. I'm out of here.